Yeah.
Once I go live, your microphone and your camera is hot. That's the microphone that we're using to get audio over YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you say anything or anything, it's going to pick up a little bit.
Are we?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
On YouTube. Give me a sec. Give me like, YouTube's good, but give me like a minute to go back in the classroom and make sure they started over there.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Oh, you have it.
There you go.
Why did you guys get selected for this? Oh. That would make it difficult to watch then. So how do you guys hear the announcements every day?
Good morning, my dear sophomores, sophomores, and welcome to your retreat. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker for this day. Our speaker is a Catholic speaker, an author, and a YouTuber who has currently 20,000 subscribers so far. He has given retreats for almost 20 years around the United States. He has been in both TV and radio many times and has written 2 books so far. He started a Catholic organization called Catholic Truth. Dear BVI community, please welcome Brian Mercier. Please give him a round of applause.
Hi, everybody. I'll try again. Hi, everybody. I'm used to an entire conference room here. I've been giving retreats here for like 8 years. It's pretty fun. PBI is probably one of my favorite schools that I go to all year. Not just saying that. I love you guys. You guys are always great each year. Usually we have crazy games, which we're not allowed to play this year. And we run around the auditorium. And actually, we had a cool game called Birdie on a Perch. And basically, there's a huge circle of people, actually 2 circles, and they go different ways. And then when I say birdie on a perch, you have to find your partner, and you have to hoist them up on your back, and the last person up off the ground, like the people who are last, they're out, so they have to sit down. They fail at life. And then you just keep doing that until more and more people are down, and there's about 50 people left, 100 people left. And I remember one year I said, there's way too many people left, so we're gonna cut this down real quick. So I said, when I say birdie on a perch, you not only have to find your partner, but then you have to carry your partner on your back down to me, and the first 5 people to high-five me will be in the final round. So everybody's like getting all competitive, getting all excited. So I'm waiting, I'm over here, and there's like literally like 100 kids left. And I say, birdie on a perch, and everyone's like, ah! And they start like running around trying to find their partner, and all of a sudden, do you guys remember the movie Lion King? When like Zazu and the little lions and all the rhinoceroses are charging them, and they're like, ah, that's kind of like what it was. I see like 100 kids running at me on their back, and like one kid right in the middle there tripped and fell, and then the person behind them fell, and behind that, it was like a car crash. It was like a pile of bodies like all around. It was awesome. So it was great. I miss those times when we played the games. They're a lot of fun, but now you just have to hear me blab. So before I tell you guys more about the retreat, I'd like to tell you about me. So, because you guys don't know me, and I give retreats a lot, and you don't care, but that's cool too. But I give retreats, and a lot of people think that retreat speakers have no life, because they just go around the country and talk about Jesus. And basically, if they had a life, they would do anything except walk around the country and talk about Jesus, right? So, I'd like to start out by talking a little bit about me, because I wasn't always the person I am now. And our retreat theme today is, I believe, no turning back, kind of all in for God, going all in. And I was not all in for God growing up. I mean, I had 5 brothers and sisters, grew up in a family. We went to church every Sunday, super boring, prayed every night, never got my prayers answered. So basically, religion to me was just something you did, something you had to do, but it was super boring, like school. And maybe you love school, but I hated school when I was in high school. I actually graduated at the bottom of my class. I think we had 161 kids in my graduating class, and I graduated 131, which means there were only 30 kids dumber than me. And they were usually the kids who skipped school and did hardcore drugs and stuff. So yeah, I was a winner in high school. And that was my life for a while. And I actually had a difficult childhood growing up. In fact, my parents, people told my mom to abort me because my dad had just lost his job, and they didn't have money for me, so they were like, oh, just get rid of him, we don't have money, he's gonna have a horrible life. And I did have a tough life for a long time, and it was tough, and I had some abuse, and I don't know, I guess I got angry. I was made fun of a lot in high school, and my mom sent me to a high school in Boston, just so you know, I'm from Boston. I grew up 5 minutes from where the Patriots played, New England Patriots, so I used to work at the Patriots Stadium, and my brother got to interview a lot of the big players and stuff. So it's pretty cool. You know, you get to see all the soccer games, Metallica concerts, different things like that. So I went to school in Boston, and it was a Catholic school, and I put Catholic in quotes because our school was at the corner of the combat zone. And if you don't know what that is, that's where like all the gangs hang out and like shoot each other. And our principal told us we weren't allowed to go to the right of our school, like because we'd be going into the combat zone and probably not be coming back out. And we weren't allowed to go across the street from the school because it was like this park full of drugs and thugs, and you'd probably not come back out. So it's a pretty bad area. We were only allowed to go to the left of the school, that way and behind the school. And even one of my friends was jumped by like 30 kids going to the nice part. So even in school, like that Catholic school, you'd see kids all the time, like hanging, like I remember going to the locker room, and there was this kid hanging by a wedgie. They picked him up by his underwear and hung him on the top locker. I'm like, what? The kid's like, let me down, let me down. And just stupid things like that. Or if you want the more serious hazing, they actually used to take out their ink from their pens and they'd replace them with needles, and they'd stab you as you're going down the hallway or stab you in the back of math class. Who knows what's at the end of their needles too. And this was the nice hazing. This wasn't even Boston public schools, which sometimes got lethal, and I remember people dying and stuff. So it wasn't a very nice area. And I remember transferring out like halfway through the year. I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. And so I left about halfway through, and I went to my high school. Now my high school was #1 in a lot of sports: soccer, lacrosse, swimming, like a lot. Like we were Jocktown. And I played soccer for 13 years. I had played baseball for 10 years, so I knew a lot of the kids in town. But since I had come into the school like halfway through the year, I was like the new guy. And so people, I don't know if you guys have ever transferred into a new school, but I got made fun of a lot because I was the new kid. And at first I could take it because I was like, people were like, Brian, you're an idiot. I'm like, yeah, I'm an idiot. All right, cool. And they'd be like, all right. So I think because they thought I could take it and I was like nice about it, so everyone just kept making fun of me and more and more and more. But after like 6 months of that, a year of that, I got really old. I already hated my life. My parents had a horrible marriage. They were talking about getting divorced. Nothing was going right. And so I said, fine. I don't know. I just started getting angry, started getting depressed, started to kind of like dress in black, carry weapons, like become like sort of psychotic. And people were like, hey, Brian, you're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, that's funny. I'm going to kill you. They'd be like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, let's go outside. And I'd like start talking trash to everybody. And I'd like, it was kind of like a nice guy, but kind of a crazy guy. I don't know if you guys remember what happened in Columbine many, many years ago. Like, so 2 kids got pushed over the edge, being bullied too much, and they ended up shooting up a school. Like, one of the biggest tragedies in America. I was kind of becoming one of those kids in my mind. I was becoming very dark. Like, I started to write poetry. Like, I had 2 types of poems. One poem was like, I'm a loser, no girl will ever love me, I'm ugly, I'll never date or have a family. Like all the girls would read my poems and be like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. I'm like, really? Do you want to date me? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, go write another loser poem. And then I'd have like angry poems, which would be like, you're a loser, F you, your mom's a loser, F her too, you think you're tough, come on down here, we'll see what you can do. And it would basically just talk trash to all the people I hated. And after about like a few months of that, I started getting angrier and angrier, and my poems started getting darker and darker, stuff you'd totally be like arrested for today. I remember my friends in high school would read my poems and be like, Bri, we think you should go see Bob. I'm like, who's Bob? They're like, the school psychiatrist. When your friends recommend you to counseling, you know you have issues, all right? Now, I was like, I'm not going to go see Bob. He probably gets paid $100 an hour just to hear me, cry. I don't care about him. Nobody cares about me. I'm not going to see. My parents don't care about me. My friends don't care about me. No one's going to care about me. So I just had this dismal, dark outlook on life. And I went to this school assembly because up till recently, when I started doing YouTube full-time and speaking and other things, I was actually a substitute teacher, coolest sub ever. And in my substitute teaching, she thought about calling the police because, well, she, if he went to jail, then, he'd at least get help. That was kind of her thinking. But then she decided to take another approach. She decided, since I was in high school and I was graduating, she wanted to send me out to a Catholic college in Ohio, which is one of the best Catholic colleges in America, Franciscan University. And so I didn't really want to go to a Catholic college. What do Catholic college kids do? Normal college kids have fun. Catholic college kids. They probably just like sit around and pray and like become priests and nuns, stuff like that. Sorry, Father. That's not what I actually believe, but that's just what I believed at the time. And now, becoming a priest or a nun is actually a really cool thing. There are many different types, but my time, in my opinion, it was stupid. They probably didn't even like girls. They probably didn't play sports. They probably didn't like video games. All the stuff that I liked, I assumed they didn't like. I assumed that they were just these perfect, prissy little people, so I didn't really want to go there. But my mom kind of made me, and I ended up going, and I ended up loving it. And it ended up changing my life. And so you're probably like, okay, well, how did you get from a super psycho who dressed in black every day and carried weapons and wanted to hurt people to the super awesome person that you are today? Well, that's a great question. I'll answer that for you. So after I went to this college, I had all these people come up to me, and they were talking to me, and they were like super nice to me. And I'm like, wow, everybody at this college is like super nice. That's so weird. I'm not used to people being nice. And all these girls were coming up to me and like hugging me and kissing me and like, Brian, we love you. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's like total opposite of high school. Like nobody loved me in high school. Everyone loved me in college. I don't know why. But I was like, this is a cool place. All these girls are like Catholic. They all love me. I'm like, I'm going to stay here. And so I ended up like really liking this school. And this is the place that God was going to change my life. Because I don't know if you're like me, but I was the kind of person who prayed every day. Like I never missed a day of prayer. And I still feel like God didn't do anything for me. I prayed that this girl on the soccer team, Andrea, she was number 6, she was super hot, and I wanted her as a girlfriend. So I prayed to God to get her as a girlfriend. You know what? Nothing happened. And so my mom told me about this thing called a Novena, and you pray for 9 days, and then you get whatever you want. It's not really how it works, but that's kind of how she sold it to me. So I was like, sweet, I'll pray for 9 days, and then I'll get a girlfriend. So I prayed it for 9 days, and then you know what happened? Nothing. Still nothing, because I was still a loser. And now I ended up just kind of believing either one, God's not real. Number 2, God is real, but he doesn't care about me. Or 3, God is real, and he cares about me, but he's this old dude with a beard like 50 bazillion light years away. And it takes forever for my prayers to get up there, and if he feels like answering it, then he's going to send them all the way back down. It's kind of like how I saw God. He was like way out there, moving target. You just kind of throw your prayers up. Hopefully it hits the target, and hopefully he listens to you. But God was actually going to change my life at this college. And just so you know, this college was, how do you say, have you guys ever seen those shows on TV where like people are like, hallelujah, we love Jesus, praise you, Jesus. Have you guys seen that, like on TV? That's kind of how my college was. A lot of kids there were like that, and they'd put their hands up and they'd be like, oh, Jesus. And I'm like, you guys are so weird. I can't. And I sometimes, like, when they're all doing that, and we're all at church, and we're all praying, and I can hear them, like, singing to Jesus, and, like, speaking in all the different weird languages, and I used to, like, turn around, and I used to look at them, and like, and I'd, like, make fun of them, and I'd, like, laugh at them, I'm like, you guys are so weird. And I didn't understand it. And then, I think because I made fun of them a lot, God decided to have some fun with me. I remember about 6 months after that, we were at this big prayer night. There were like 1,000 college kids there, all together, all singing. And I remember I was psych. It was mass. And I was in the 5th row in the front. There were like 1,000 people. We filled the whole church. I was in the 5th pew from the front. And we were singing the song, Glory to God in the Highest. And I remember strongly, for the first time in my life, I really felt like God was asking me to do something. And I felt like he wanted me to put my hands up in the air, like all the other people. And being the good Catholic that I was, I told him, no. Not God. Do you see all those wackos? I ain't acting like that. I told him, no way, thank you. And I crossed my arms, all the closed off position. And so he didn't make me, but he asked me, he said, please, Brian, give me a chance. I said, no. Maybe if I was in the back row, no one can see me, I'd get fine. But no, not now. And so he kept persisting. He's like, please, it'll change your life, please. I said, fine, if it's going to make you happy, put my stupid hands in the air. And that's literally what I told God. And God doesn't usually work with people who give him a bad attitude. But I put my hands up just like this, not like all the weirdos just swaying in the Jesus breeze. I just put my hands up just a little bit. In that moment, literally changed my life. The way I look at it now is, it's kind of like if someone came up to you and stuck a gun up to your back and said, stick him up, what would you do? You'd say, I stop, I surrender, don't shoot, I surrender. And I realized in that moment, God wanted me just to surrender all my problems. Up until this point, for the last 7 years, I hated my life. I hated myself. Didn't even look in the mirror for 7 years because I hated what I saw. It was literally the ugliest person on planet Earth. I literally had the most rock bottom self-esteem, depression, anxiety, like everything. And not that I wasn't happy when I hung out with friends, but inside I was dying. And God's like, are you tired of that? Give it up to me. Surrender it to me. So as soon as I put my hands up in the air, this force just hit me so hard. It was like, I don't know how to explain it except like to say like an 18-wheeler truck. You guys know those long trucks on the highway? It's kind of like, it felt like one of those hit me. And it actually hurt. Like, it was legit, like, physical hurt. And I looked behind me just to see for a second if I went through the back wall of the church. And this force just started going through my body and, like, paralyzing me from head to toe. And I started legit, like, freaking out. And I tried to turn my head to the little girl next to me just to ask for help, because I'd never experienced any of this religious freak weirdness before. And so I couldn't even turn my head to her. And I'm, like, legit freaking out. I was like, am I going to die? Am I going to die? And, long story short, God gave me kind of a vision of, I didn't see heaven, never. I don't know even know if it's possible to see heaven, but he gave me a vision of what heaven might be like. And I saw a lot of things, and God told me that he could change my life, totally change it. From the anger, the depression, the anxiety, like everything. Low self-esteem can totally change your life if you want it. Whew. And I didn't know what that meant, but I decided to start trying to follow God more. I mean, I used to curse like a sailor. Every other word was like a swear word out of my mouth. Like, we cursed everyone out. Like, that was just who I was. I used to, like, sit in railroad tracks, like, psychotic things. So I was like, you know what? I need to change some of my life around. So I started changing my life, trying to follow God more. And within, like, 6 months to a year, God had completely transformed me, filled me with so much peace, joy, happiness, and love, which I had never experienced in my whole entire life, which I could never experience in 10 lifetimes. Like, if you would experience, it was like waterfalls of God. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced God at all, but then, like, amp it up to, like, 100. Like, that's what it felt like. And I used to play Mortal Kombat, it's this video game, and I used to love playing Raiden. Before Raiden started, he used to put his hand up into the sky, and he got struck by lightning, went through his whole body, and then he was, like, filled with it, so he could, like, zap people. It's kind of like what I felt like after God hit me. Not to try to apply it to Mortal Kombat, but just so you get it, it's like, he really, like, struck me hard. And ever since that day, I've really known God. If I ask you guys, do you believe in God? You'd be like, yeah, I believe. Most people are like, yeah, I believe. It's like we're taught to. But most people are more like, yes. Right now, I'm like, yes. Like, I know God. I feel God. I experience God. He's real to me. He's not some dude way out there billions of light years away. He's like, here. And I hear him. I feel him. He works in my life powerfully. Not all the time, but it's completely amazing how we've been brought up in our church as Catholics, religious education and all these other things, and most people still don't know God. They don't even know, I mean, yeah, sort of, kind of exists, especially nowadays. People are always like, no, God doesn't exist. God doesn't do anything. That stuff's fake. You guys are stupid. It's all you hear online nowadays. And I remember in college, and even after I knew God, I tried to tell this atheist girl about him, and she was like debunking all my arguments, and she was basically just, telling me I was wrong, and I ended up like totally just crying. I'm like, I know God, but I can't explain it, blah, blah, blah. It's just faith. And the girl's like, faith is just your excuse to say something you can't prove. I'm like, fine, you win. I don't know how to explain God. And at the time I didn't. But since then I've actually studied it, because I'm not someone who likes to believe blindly. If God's not real, I don't want to believe it. And so I ended up studying it for the last 20 years, and I wrote a book, and it's called Why Do You Believe in God? I ask most teens why they believe in God, and they have no idea. And I ask them, can you explain it to an atheist? Do you guys have actual proof that God exists? Most people say, no, there's no proof. You just have to have faith. By which means, this is their faith. There's no proof, but I believe it. Why would you believe something there's no proof for? That's stupid. That's not faith. Faith is based off some sort of evidence. Like, if I sit in a chair, I have faith that it's not going to break, because it usually doesn't. It might, But chances are it's not going to because they're made sturdy and strong. Now, faith is based off evidence, and since then I've gotten into countless conversations with atheists, skeptics, secular humanists, and just people who have left the Catholic Church, people who don't believe in God, and I wrote a book on it, and I give it to a few of you guys if you want to have a few copies here, but if you want one, I'll give it to you if you're struggling with faith, or if you want to know how to defend your faith. There's lots of actual good proof that God exists, scientific, philosophical, historical proof that God exists. So these are actually 15 real conversations that I've had with atheists. So you get to hear their side, you get to hear what they say. But then you get to hear what I say, and you get to, see which side you agree with. But you're going to see that the side for God is much, much, much stronger. We talk about science, we talk about evolution, we talk about why God can't be seen, we talk about hell, we talk about why does God allow people to suffer. One of the biggest reasons people don't believe in God today is because they suffer. Well, I prayed for my mom to get better and she didn't. Therefore, God's not real. Really? Is that the only option? I prayed for my cat not to die, and he did, and therefore God's not real. Really? That's the only option? Just because your prayer didn't get answered? So many people stop believing in God so easily, but yet God's there, and God says anyone who follows him can have eternal life with him. So if you guys struggle with any of this stuff, and you want this book, feel free to let me know after this talk, and I will give it to you, and I will give out, I think I have 2 or 3 copies here that I can give to you guys. Just let me know. But for myself, I not only have good reasons to believe in God, but I myself have personally experienced God as well. And I remember, let me just close with one story about this guy. Even before I got to the guy, I was going into the woods to read, and I used to climb up on this big rock, and I used to read on a rock in the woods. So I'm heading there, and all of a sudden, God speaks to me and tells me to turn around and go down and read down by the hospital. And I was like, okay. So I literally just turned around, started walking down to the hospital, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, God. The hospital's under construction, and it's like a huge fence around it. You can't get to the hospital. There's literally just a patch of grass with a fire hydrant outside. That's the only place I could get to. And I felt like he was saying, okay, go there. So I was like, all right, hospital's like a quarter mile away, maybe half a mile away. So I'm walking to the hospital, and you have to go down this big hill and cross a street. Once you cross the street, that's where the patch of grass is and the fire hydrant. So I'm coming down the big hill, and even before I get to the street to cross it, I see this huge guy over there. And when I say a huge guy, I'm talking like a refrigerator with like a little head on top. This guy's like huge. He had scars all over his face. He was bald, psycho looking. And even before I got to the street, this dude calls out to me. He's like, hey, you. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, are you a Christian? I'm like, what? He's like, are you a Christian? I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you Catholic? I'm like, that's a weird question, but yes, I am. Now I'm walking across the street. I'm getting closer to him. And he's like, do you read the Bible? I'm like, are you going to kill me? I'm like, what do you want? He's like, come here. He's like, this dude told me that he got out of prison like that day. They just put him on a bus, didn't even give him any money, and he was literally just got off the bus stop there, and it was his first moments of freedom. And I'm like, this is so weird. And this guy told me that he had been in prison for over 10 years. He did something really bad. And he just wanted to know that he could be forgiven for all the bad things he's done in his life. In fact, some lady at the prison gave him a rosary, and he hung it on his bed, and he tried to pray to God, and he's like, I don't feel like God's listening to me. He's like, I don't feel like God even hears me. So he's like, I just want to be able to start over. He's like, I just want to know that I can have a second chance for the bad things I've done. And I said, do you really want to follow God? Because if you really want, you have to go all in. You can't go halfway with God, or you won't experience it. You have to go all in. You have to really want it. Guy's like, okay, fine. He's like, I really want it. He's like, I've wanted it for years. I was like, okay, follow me. I felt like Jesus, follow me. And so I led him downtown to downtown Meriden, and I said, kneel down. And I said, I'll pray for you. Because many people pray, we just toss prayers out, but many people don't know how to connect with God on a deeper level through prayer. So I said, I'll pray for you, and I'll connect you to God. And you got to repeat my prayers, but you got to mean it from the bottom of your heart. You got to go all in, 100%. He's like, all right, coolio. So he kneels down like samurai warrior style, and I kneel down, and I start praying. I said, Lord Jesus. He says, Lord Jesus. I said, I'm so sorry for all my sins. And he says, I'm so sorry for all my sins. And I'm leading them through this prayer. At the end of the prayer, I'm probably like halfway through the prayer. I was like, I wanted to make sure he was taking me seriously. So I opened my eyes just a little bit, just to see like if he was like ADD and watching birds, or if he was like legit praying. So halfway through, I opened my eyes, and maybe it's because I was like praying my heart out. I was like, come on, God, strike this guy with lightning, like do something. And halfway through the prayer, I look over at this dude, and he's sitting there. He's like a warrior praying, and this guy's shirt is completely and totally soaking wet. So much so that the tears he was crying were bouncing off onto his jeans, which were completely soaking wet. I was like, whoa, this dude's crying like a baby. I was like, that's so weird. I was like, in that moment, all I could think of was like, I was going into the woods to read. Minding my own business. God told me to turn around, go down by the hospital, there's someone down there I needed to help. So I started heading down there a quarter mile away, and this big refrigerator guy with a head on top's now crying like a little baby and needed God, and now he's experiencing God really powerful. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's how God works for those people who are really close to him. You can hear him, you can feel him, he works powerfully in your life. And every one of us here is called to have that in some way. It might not be as radically or crazy as mine. Some people don't feel it at all, but they know that God's working in their life. You are all called to have that profound, deep relationship with God, not just going through the motions, not just, I put on my Twitter kind of a sassy tweet. I was like, basically, if you think that, what did I say? If you think religion's boring, then you're doing it wrong. You probably think it's all about rules, just do what you're supposed to, follow the rules, check all the boxes. That's super boring. Imagine if I lived that with my wife. I said, I have to take her on a date. Okay, let's go get this over with. I have to kiss her before I go to bed every night. Okay, let's get this over with. If I had that attitude, of course it's going to be boring. But if we understand that our faith is about a relationship with God who can legit change your life, so many Catholics are bored in their faith because they're doing it wrong. But I want to let you know that it's really about relationship with Jesus. Don't stop praying if your prayers aren't answered. My prayers weren't answered for years, and God was saving them all at one time. And I went out to that college, and he finally poured them back out on top of me and just answered them all in one moment. So it might take you a year. It might take you several years to encounter God, to really experience him. But he's always there. He's always guiding you. Just because you don't get what you want when you pray for it doesn't mean he's not listening. So that's my story, just kind of like where I came from, what I do, why I love God so much, why I go around and talk about him so much, because he's legit changed my life. And I want to help change other people's lives. How many people are struggling with the same things I struggle with? Some people struggle with a lot of anger. Others with depression. Others with anxiety. Others with just low self-esteem, horrible body image. Some people have eating disorders. Some people do drugs. Some people have sex just to try to stop the pain. So other people have all sorts of addictions nowadays. There's addictions up the yin-yang because you know why? As one Protestant pastor said, we have more technology and more money than every other society before us in history, and yet suicide is still on the rise. Depression is still on the rise. Anxiety is hardcore on the rise. The numbers in the jail are higher than ever because we have all of this stuff, but none of that makes us truly happy. It's all a drug to take us away from the fact that we're not happy. We're not fulfilled. We have this huge hole in our heart, and it's only filled by a huge God. But yet we try to fill it with drinking and sex and drugs, or even just parties. I was the party animal. I used to swing from chandeliers and act stupid. I was the class clown, but it was all just a cover-up. I acted happy on the inside so people didn't know how much I hated my life on the inside. God wants you to be so happy on the outside and happy and joyful and peaceful on the inside. But that only comes when you have a deep relationship with him. And that will be what my next talk is about. So thank you for listening, and thank you for actually being here in person. Thank you, Brian. You're awesome. Yeah. I'm going to jet out real quick just to use the baño before my next talk. So Nice knowing you guys. Anyone want a book? BT Dubs? Anyone want one? 2 people? 3 people? I have a few copies. Don't be shy. See, good job. Anyone else? You're welcome.
I do. 9:50.
Play Ultimate Frisbee on the East.
Yeah, 9:50, they go where? Do they go but stay or anything?
All right, I'm going to go to the bino. Maybe I'll see you guys later. Take care.
No. So I was 222. Yeah.
You go to school here, and you go home, that's what you go.
They're staying there. Okay.
So let me. So should we just leave this one here?